All right, guys, so the 2023 March Madness bracket is out. I know I say this a lot of months and a lot of times a year, but objectively, this truly is my favorite time of year for sports, March Madness. Get ready to fill out your brackets because they were just revealed a little over an hour ago. I'm definitely gonna make a video about my own predictions, my own bracket, but I need a little bit of time to think about that. So that video will probably come either tomorrow, on Monday, or on Tuesday. But for now, I just kind of wanted to go through my initial thoughts on the bracket, the seeds I like, some things I don't like, and some of the teams that maybe just missed the field, some bad draws, stuff like that, my initial thoughts. And definitely comment your opinions as well, guys. What do you like initially when looking at this bracket about certain matchups? Let me know. I'd love to hear it because every bracket, every single year is unique in its own way, and there's things to like and dislike about every bracket, just as a college basketball fan. So we're gonna go through the things I like and don't like, what I think the committee got right, what they got wrong, and so on and so forth. This won't be too long of a video, but I thought it'd be fun to make it regardless. So we're gonna start with the 1 seeds. So I think for the most part, the committee got the 1 seeds right. So our 1 seeds are Houston and Alabama, no doubt about those two. Purdue and Kansas. Kansas, not a surprise at all. I will say, I am surprised that Alabama is the #1 overall seed. They weren't supposed to be the #1 overall seed coming into the conference tournaments, but they won the SEC tournament pretty easily in the SEC, along with the Big 12, one of the 2 best conferences in college basketball this year. So I definitely think Alabama is deserving of the #1 overall seed, but it does come at a little bit of a surprise, comes as a little bit of a surprise for sure. And Houston definitely deserved the 1 seed, even though they didn't win the American Conference tournament. They lost to Memphis today in the finals. Kansas, definitely a 1 seed, or definitely deserving of a 1 seed, obviously. The 1 seed that did surprise me a little bit was Purdue, because they were kind of projected as a #2 seed going into conference tournaments. I think they were the 6th ranked team in the country coming into conference tournaments, but they won the Big Ten title, and then UCLA lost the Pac-12 title. So don't tell me that conference tournaments don't matter. There's been kind of a complaint that seeding, the conference tournaments that end the last day on Selection Sunday, like the Big Ten tournament always does, a lot of times they don't factor into the seeding, but I think maybe the committee's come around on that because Purdue winning today against Penn State in the Big Ten finals, Big Ten championship, I think ultimately is what got them the 1 seed over UCLA, who did not win the Pac-12 title. They lost to U of A. So 1 seeds overall, I agree with them. What surprised me a little bit, it's not that much of a surprise, I guess, but I just wanted to talk about it. The 2 seeds, I think they got it right. I think U of A Arizona deserved a 2 seed after winning the Pac-12. Texas, arguably a 1. I just didn't think there was room for them to move up to the 1 line, but they won the Big 12 over Kansas, so they're definitely deserving of at least a 2 seed. I think they are the top overall 2 seed, either them or UCLA, I forgot. Marquette getting a 2 seed's a little surprising. I know they've had a great season. They won the Big East title, but Big East teams, at least in years past, have not been getting seeds this high. The last time a seed in the Big East was this high is, I believe, Xavier had a 1 seed. So we'll see how Marquette does with their 2 seed, but it is kind of unique to see a Big East team or a team like Marquette be seeded that high, but I'm not complaining about it at all. And then let's see, what else do I have in my handy dandy notes? Okay, so the committee said that the last team in was Nevada. They're going to play ASU, Arizona State, my school, in the first 4. Both teams just snuck in. Now, Nevada was literally the last team in the field, according to the committee. They said this afterward. And the closest team to making it, the first team out of this field, was apparently Oklahoma State. They went 18-15 this year, albeit in arguably the toughest conference, one of the toughest conferences in the Big 12. But, I looked at Oklahoma State's resume, and I can't say it's exactly highway robbery that they didn't get in, because they never beat any of the top 3 teams in their conference. They never beat Baylor, they never beat Kansas, and they never beat Kansas State. So those 18 wins, they did have some big ones. They beat Iowa State twice. but they didn't have that big time, humongous win. They didn't beat a top 10 team at any point. So I'm not going to say that an 18-15 team that doesn't have any massive wins is deserving of being in the field. So I can't complain too much about that. I will say there is one team I think got robbed, and that was Rutgers out of the Big Ten, because a lot of people said that Rutgers was actually comfortably, and I expected Rutgers to not only make the tournament, but not even have to be a first four team. I thought they were probably a 10 or 11 seed, and one of those 11 seeds that doesn't have to play in the first four. They play in the Big Ten. They beat Purdue when Purdue was the #1 team in the country. So they do, unlike Oklahoma State, Rutgers does have that big time, massive victory over Purdue. And yeah, the Big Ten, obviously a great conference, and they had some other good wins as well. So Rutgers, I mean, they did struggle down the stretch. They did not finish the season well, but they also beat Michigan in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. So it's not like they were upset or anything. So I don't really see why Rutgers didn't make it. I don't agree with that. I would say they got slightly robbed. Another team that was treated disrespectfully, I feel like, was Texas A&M being a 7 seed in the SEC, which was a great conference this year. Texas A&M gets a 7 seed when going into the conference tournament, they were ranked 18th in the AP poll, which usually equates to a 4 or 5 seed, although it's not always consistent. But I thought they were a 5 seed at the bare minimum coming into the conference tournament. They were the second best team in the SEC in the regular season, right behind Alabama. They made it all the way to the SEC finals, and they lost today to Alabama. No shame in that. They did exactly what they were expected to, maybe even beyond that. They didn't disappoint in any way. They put on a great performance. I believe they were 25-9 this year. So Texas A&M getting a 7 seed is pretty disrespectful in my opinion. I think they should be at least 2 seeds higher, maybe a 4 seed, definitely a 5. So I think they're the team that really got underseeded the most in this tournament. Now we're going to talk about a couple teams that got bad draws in my opinion, and I guess that deserves to be in the category of bad seeding. But I would say Arizona getting a 2 seed, they deserve the 2 seed, but getting matched up against Princeton. These Ivy League schools, obviously the Ivy League, usually is a 1-bid conference. One team makes it to the dance from the Ivy League every year. But as you March Madness fans, as well as I, who have been watching the tournament for a handful of years, know, Ivy League teams are sneaky in this tournament, and they're usually not seeded this low. Usually Ivy League teams are seeded 12 to 14. Usually, and they sometimes pull off upsets. They at least make it interesting and make it difficult for the top seed that they're matched up against. Princeton beat Yale today in the Ivy League championship. They were 21-8 this year, but they're playing really well. I don't think they deserve to be a 15 seed. I think they're more of a 14 or 13, which means Arizona probably has the toughest 15 seed. I'm looking at the 15 seeds, and I think it's a stretch to put Princeton against U of A in that first round matchup. Yeah, I think either the only other 15 seed that I think can be argued to be as good as Princeton is Colgate. But yeah, Colgate, they usually make it great offensive team, but they don't defend, which always concerns me. So yeah, Princeton underseeded. U of A, they get a bad draw in the first round. I'm not necessarily saying that Princeton's going to win that game. I need to think about it, guys. We're not making any predictions yet. But yeah, initial thoughts, I thought Princeton was underseeded. Another team, this team was not underseeded, but this team got a horrible draw, probably the worst one possible. And it's a team that I've been rooting for, a team that I have history picking as a Cinderella team, and that coming into fruition, and that is Oral Roberts. We remember Oral Roberts from 2 years ago as a 15 seed. They got to the Sweet 16. Somehow I predicted them to get to the Sweet 16 2 years ago. Still don't know how I did it. One of my crowning achievements in life so far for me. But I'm not surprised they got a 12 seed, because this year they are way better than 2 years ago. Undefeated in conference play. They went 30-4. They're a terrific team. Terrific Cinderella potential team in a mid-major conference. We see a few of these every year. They're one of those potentially under the radar, surprising lower seeds that can go deep into this tournament. But they face Duke. Duke, who is probably the hottest Power 5 team in the country right now. They won the ACC tournament. They've won, I think, 9 in a row or something. and they pretty comfortably won the ACC tournament. They beat Miami, they beat Virginia in the finals. They should not be a 5 seed. They should be a 4 seed, maybe a 3 seed. And Oral Roberts, I knew they'd be a 12. That's about as high as you can go being in a conference as small as Oral Roberts. So they basically, I mean, they got the highest seed they could. But they should be the highest ranked 12 seed in my opinion, or at least not play Duke in the first round. What did Oral Roberts deserve to play Duke in this first round? I wanted to pick them as a definite first round upset team. I'm not saying I won't, but that's probably the worst draw Oral Roberts could have gotten. Worst draw possible for them. So I hate to see it as someone who remembers Oral Roberts, and I'm rooting for them again to be a Cinderella team, so I don't like that draw for them. Couple things left. Florida Atlantic. So congrats to them. They got a 9 seed against Memphis. Not a great draw because I think Memphis is probably the best 8 seed. They have some Cinderella potential, but we'll get into that in our next video when we get down to the actual predictions. I'm just happy that a team like Florida Atlantic in a conference like Conference USA, this is probably the first time I've ever seen a team from Conference USA get a seed this high, at least since I've been watching March Madness, probably the last 10-ish years. I don't remember a team from Conference USA getting a 9 seed or above, but if one team ever deserved it out of this conference, it would be Florida Atlantic because they went 31-3 this year. They were phenomenal all season. At some point, they were in the AP top 25. Actually, I think that was a couple weeks ago. So not complaining about their seed. It's just great to see kind of a mid-major-ish conference, or a team that doesn't come from one of the top conferences, to get a single-digit seed. So good for Florida Atlantic. And then a couple teams that kind of fell from grace, kind of collapsed down the stretch, that ended up having seeds way lower than projected even a week or two ago, were Providence. First of all, if I can find them in this bracket, they're an 11 seed. They're playing Kentucky. Tough draw as always. Coach Cal, Kentucky. They have a lot of familiarity at this time of year, but regardless, I'm not saying Providence deserves to be higher than an 11. They don't, because they played horrendously down the stretch. Their defense has been in shambles, but Providence just last week was a top 20 team in the country, so that usually equates to a 5 or 6 seed, but they have lost a lot recently. They have not been playing well, so they have completely slipped down all the way to the 11 line, as well as a former top 25 team just a week or two ago as well, if I can find them, and that is, where are they? I'm looking for Pittsburgh, by the way. I'm just going to spoil that. They're an 11 seed for sure. Oh yeah, they're in the first 4. I forgot. Yeah, talk about a fall from grace for Pittsburgh. They played Mississippi State in the first 4. Just a week or two ago, they were in the AP top 25. They did not close the season well, so they got in the field. There was no doubt about that, but I don't think a lot of fans of Pitt, or just people who follow college basketball, would have thought that Pittsburgh would fall all the way to the first 4. So definitely surprising that they have fallen this far down. I thought they were probably a 6 or 7 seed a week or two ago. And the last team I want to talk about, this also has to do with seeding that I don't really like. I'm not a fan of. VCU got a little bit disrespected. Usually the Atlantic 10, the A10 produces, it's a conference that produces at least a couple teams every year in March Madness, but VCU this year is the only team out of the A10 to make it. People were kind of sensing, analysts, experts, whatever you want to call them, that this conference, the A10, this season was not as strong as it normally is, and that this was going to be a one-bid conference where only one team was going to make it, whoever won the conference tournament. That's exactly what VCU did today. They beat Dayton in the finals, but they were clearly the best team in the regular season, and toward the end of the season in the A10, they won 27 games. They went 27-7, and usually in the A10, you win your conference tournament, you win 27 games, you should be above a 12 seed. That's kind of disrespectful. I think VCU should be a 9 or 10, and they've been a 9 or 10 in years past when they haven't won their conference tournament. So I don't know what the committee is thinking. And they get to face St. Mary's, a team they faced, I believe, in either 2017 or 2018 in the first round. So these are familiar opponents. But guys, I think that's all I have off the top of my head. Initial thoughts on this bracket. But overall, I think the committee did a good job. It's so hard to make a bracket of 68 teams, but you gotta love it. Every year, the bracket's unique in its own way. Overall, I don't think this will be a very top-heavy year. I don't think that there are so many, really elite teams. I think there will be, every year there's upsets, but I think it's not an amazing year for 1 seeds or top 2 seeds. There's just going to be a lot of chaos this year, but really, that's every year. So what am I saying? I have no idea. But anyway, shouldn't be, I just don't think it's as top heavy as it normally is. But we will see, of course. I need a day or two, of course, to make my predictions. I got to think about it. Probably going to be wrong anyway, but I still want to think about it. I just don't want to mindlessly select my bracket just yet. But guys, those are my initial thoughts. Beautiful time of year. March Madness starting in 2 days on Tuesday with the first 4. Make sure you catch it. Make sure you start to think about filling out your bracket. Comment your opinions, your initial thoughts on the bracket. Some upset picks. I want to hear all your predictions, any and all of them. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, I'll see you all in the next one.